with details on AEW's upcoming announcement and more. This is Wrestling Rambles. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we move on, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Rambles with notifications on, and don't forget to like the video. Revealing that she is open to defending her women's title in an Elimination Chamber match, Rhea Ripley said this to Sam Roberts of Not Sam Wrestling. "I'd be down for it. I've done it before. Let's be honest here. I love a bit of brutality. Give me some steel. Give me some weapons. Give me some pods. I don't care. I love all that stuff. I live for this." Speaking about Christian Cage and his current character in AEW, Adam Copeland said this to Sports Illustrated. "He does this so well because he wants to be one. Somewhere along the way, that's got lost. Heels became cooler than the babyface. That's not how it should be. That's not how he sees it either. I mean, the man wears a cut-off turtleneck. There's nothing cool about what he's doing. He's fully committed to it. He's a Bond villain and loving it. It's fun to be involved with." Recalling her debut for All Elite Wrestling and how it came together, Deonna Purrazzo told the AEW Unrestricted podcast, "I spoke to Tony Khan at the beginning of December 2023, and we were able to connect on a Zoom call and talk. We had only talked once, and we kind of went through the whole legal process and the contract signing, and then I hadn't seen him until I got there on Wednesday and was about to go out. I think that aided to the fact of like, okay, the audience was really excited for this, but then also to go online after the fact and just see all of my friends that I didn't get to tell and all of the fans who were genuinely surprised, it was very overwhelming with the amount of love that I got from it. Just because Tony and I hadn't spoken since that initial conversation, I didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't hear anything until Tuesday night. So as Monday happened, Tuesday happened, nobody said anything like it's probably not going to happen. The rumor mill is going around. Don't be upset. The contract is signed, so I will debut at some point, but don't be upset if you don't get to do this in Newark. It's okay." For an update on William Regal, who recently returned to NXT television, Shawn Michaels said this during the NXT Vengeance Day media call. "He came down here recently to endorse our new GM Ava. She's already wielding pretty good power and doing a good job. As he mentioned to Ava, his phone is always open. He is there for her counsel in any way he can help. Here at NXT, when you have a staple and a foundational person like William Regal, you have to have more than just one shot with him here and there." I think everybody was extremely excited about his brief cameo on NXT television. I have no doubt we will have some other cameos by William Regal in the future as well. Revealing what he believes to be the origin of his popular catchphrase, Cody Rhodes told Busted Open Radio, "I love that you give me credit for it, finish the story phrase, because there's actually a debate. So I said finish the story in a promo before the Royal Rumble, and it was on my weight belt last year. But Michael Cole is the first person I think who said it on broadcast, so I feel like it's Michael. Finish the story might be a Michael Cole thing because at some point we're going to start looking for who came up with this. I actually talked to Triple H about this a few weeks ago when I said the game was using finish the story as a theme, and I see Hulk Hogan talking about his story, Undertaker talking about his story, Steve Austin talking about his story. I felt like, oh, I've done something. I think the last thing that felt like it spread like wildfire a little bit was Bullet Club is Fine, and that was a fun, being able to name FTR and those guys. That was a fun deal, but this seems to be on a whole other level, so. Talking about the feelings she had following her retirement from pro wrestling in 2008, Torrie Wilson said this to Chris Van Vliet. "That's taken a long time to allow myself to reflect on my career. I didn't watch wrestling. I didn't want anything to do with wrestling for many years after I left. Mostly because I just had a certain amount of PTSD from being so vulnerable out there and feeling like I was put in this kind of raunchy role that wasn't me, and I felt judgment from people. I felt like people looked down on me for just stuff that I did, the bra and panty matches and all that, so I just wanted to shut that door, and for many years I didn't watch, and it wasn't until they called me to do the Royal Rumble then I started to kind of catch up, and then I got really into it, more into it than I ever was when I was wrestling." Touching on her decision to re-sign with TNA Wrestling, Knockouts champion for the company, Jordynne Grace told Fightful, "I have a profound fondness for TNA. I share an excellent relationship with the organization, and it's where I truly evolved into the person I am today. The backstage team at TNA invested their faith in me and played a significant role in my growth, from enhancing my confidence to refining my wrestling skills. Everything I am today, I owe it to TNA. I aspire to become the longest reigning Knockouts champion of all time. That would be an incredible honor. Moreover, in the past week, a new opportunity has emerged. I want to expose more people to our product. I want them to witness the essence of what we stand for. If establishing a relationship with WWE can help achieve that goal, I am more than willing to promote TNA within WWE." Speaking about her Royal Rumble attire, where she wore a pride flag, Chelsea Green said this to Wrestling News Co. "I want to be out there supporting on the front lines, with Sonya Deville, who is openly lesbian, with Piper Niven, who is openly bisexual, with all the girls that represent the community in WWE. So that's when I decided I was going to get the flag, and I was going to put the flag on my skirt. I was going to make sure I didn't do my regular pose, that I turned around and that I flashed it to the crowd. And even if they didn't understand in that moment, I know we all look at social media after the Rumble, so I made sure I got those photos and that they were ready to be posted once I exited the Rumble. I was able to post them and double down on the fact that I was coming to Florida, being in the Rumble, and supporting my LGBTQ+ community." Reacting to the text messages he read that were allegedly from Vince McMahon in the sex trafficking lawsuit, Jeff Jarrett noted on his My World podcast, "The screenshots that I read, it was toxic. It was unbelievable and hard to wrap my head around all of it. It is disturbing, and for all intents and purposes, it's the end of an era, and it is a new day in the professional wrestling business. The joke was he was going to die in that seat, but the tragedy of how the man, Vince McMahon, sits today is unbelievable." Staying on this topic, former WCW president Eric Bischoff gave his thoughts on the allegations against Vince McMahon, saying on his 83 Weeks podcast, "It's evil, and even that word doesn't really do it justice. It's just sick, and I mean mentally, emotionally sick and evil. The victim, because I know all the haters are going to say, but he didn't say enough about her. I can't imagine what she's going to go through for the rest of her life. I'll pray for her that she finds the right spiritual guidance and mental health guidance, because this is never going to leave her. She will be carrying this memory around for the rest of her life, and I can't imagine that. I can't even try to imagine it because self-preservation kicks in and I force myself to stop thinking about it. I feel so bad for the people that are innocent because this is such a dark cloud over everything that's WWE right now. I do believe that's going to change, not sooner than later. It's going to change, but it's going to take time. But there are so many innocent people that are affected by this, and at the epicenter, obviously friends and family members, like close friends, close family members of the victims, as well as the McMahons. I'm friends with Shane. I think of Stephanie in a very high regard right now, and Linda McMahon. I mean, these are people that I've met and have worked with and I've seen how they've treated others. They're having to bear this as well. The people that work there are so many people that we know that are working hard every day, that are good family people, honest people, contribute to society, help others. I mean, really good people that I know there personally, and they're affected by this. Taking to X, Charlotte Flair posted this workout video 4 weeks following her knee surgery for a torn ACL. Asked if he will wrestle again, former WWE star Patrick Clark, better known as the Velveteen Dream, told Chris Van Vliet, "I don't know the answer to that question. At first, when I got that call in May that I was getting released as a part of Budget Cuts, Canyon came and called me up and says, 'Hey, this isn't a final call to make. I'm sure you seeing people getting released and we're letting you go.' We all get the itch. Who knows? Never say never, but for right now, I don't know the answer to that question. I wouldn't want to. He lived and he died in the same brand. He was loud, he was condescending, he was all the things you don't want in a person who tell you you love. You don't want the Velveteen Dream in your lives. You might want him on your TV screens, but I think the Velveteen Dream has taken enough damage collaterally, so we decided to bury him, get him a nice little headstone. The dream is not over, but the Velveteen Dream is." Asked if a promoter were to ask him if he wanted to come back to the ring, what his response would be, he said, "Yes, because I need to know the answer to that. I don't know. I need to know if it's worth it. And if it is worth it, do I have the self-control and discipline to carry myself as a professional? I do have confidence in my ability." Talking about a matchup between The Rock and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40, Jey Uso said this to Sony Sports Network. "You know, The Rock want to be the head of the table. That's money, right? That's a match I think we all want to watch. I want to watch as a fan too. I just don't think The Rock knows what he's getting into. When it comes to the tribal chief Roman Reigns, he's got the bloodline behind him. Rock is a big uphill battle, man, but yeah, we ready to see that." Going over plans in place at WWE for a project regarding the late Bray Wyatt, Ringside News wrote that there had been earlier reports of the company planning a special project for the Eater of Worlds. However, according to the latest update by PW Insider, the project is now underway with WWE working on it for the past several weeks. Bray's real-life brother, Bo Dallas, has been interviewed during a trip to Pittsburgh on January 11th. The appearance in Steel City connects back to Wyatt's career, as it is the same city where Jason Baker's Callum Studio, which created the Fiend's mask, is located. It only seems relevant that WWE must have filmed content at the aforementioned location. Furthermore, there is no major update on the nature of the entire project. Following her main roster debut on Smackdown, this was said regarding Elektra Lopez, as it was said on Wrestling Observer Radio. Brian Alvarez noted, presumably Elektra Lopez is on her way to the main roster. Dave Meltzer added, "She is. She's gone. That's got to be it." Recalling the reaction on SmackDown to his main roster debut, NXT star Trick Williams told Busted Open Radio, "Honestly, it's a dream come true." The reaction received on January 26 WWE SmackDown. "I think that's the feeling that every wrestler wants to feel, running out when you hear your music being played. So beyond my imagination, who thinks their first debut is going to sound like that? So I'm grateful for it." Talking about his match from the Royal Rumble against Kevin Owens, Logan Paul said this on his podcast. "I did retain my title against all odds for the first time in WWE, and that's all it takes. Title defense at a time. Who knows? With this rate, I could be the next Roman Reigns." Speaking about Samantha Irvin's introduction for her entrance in WWE, which was reportedly stopped by higher-ups in the company, Chelsea Green told Wrestling News, "I don't know fully where that came from, Samantha Irvin no longer doing her special introduction, but I do know Samantha was told not to say it. Now that only lasted, maybe 3 weeks, a month. My gut tells me that someone high up thought, let's not make a big scene over all of the entrances. We're just trying to announce them. We're trying to have the announcers play their role and things like that." And then I think my gut tells me that social media maybe got in someone's ear and people realized how much they love to hear. The fans love to hear my announcement, and honestly, I was so sad to see it go, and I felt like a little part of me on my entrance was lost. So for me, I did go and I did ask and verbalized, hey, I love my announcement. I really don't want it to go anywhere. But of course, at the end of the day, I just have to let it be because I'm still going to go out there to the ring. I'm still doing my job. I'm still wrestling, I said what I had to say and I left it. And then 3 weeks later, after the internet kind of went up in flames over it, it came back, and all I have to say is thank you, Twitter. For once in my career, thank you, Twitter. Talking about Jade Cargill recently making her in-ring debut for WWE, Liv Morgan said this to Lucha Libre Online. Jade Cargill is a big star and she's going to be an even bigger star, but I did eliminate her from the Women's Royal Rumble. She was not ready for me. She was not prepared for me. She was not expecting me, and I showed her exactly why you should never, ever do that. You always have to prepare for Liv because you never know what I'm going to do. Giving his thoughts on CM Punk's triceps injury, Eric Bischoff said this on his 83 Weeks podcast. He had a fresh start in WWE. He was coming back, the stories that could have been told, the opportunities that were there for him, and going through whatever, again, I don't know him. I've never had a syllable of conversation with the man. I don't know what he's made of or what he's like, but to go through this emotional roller coaster that he's been on for the last however long it's been, 8 months, 10 months, between the craziness at AEW and coming back to WWE, and now, this man, I feel bad for him. I really do. I don't know how you couldn't feel bad for him. Touching on Vince McMahon's removal from TKO Group Holdings following the recent accusations against him, Dave Meltzer said this on Wrestling Observer Radio. "It's funny because the bad news does short-term help the ratings. We've seen that before, at least when it comes to Vince McMahon bad news. Other bad news may not, but when it comes to Vince McMahon, it does, and it is very interesting. And I'm not surprised, and I don't think anyone should be, that when you compare and contrast the first time Vince quit, and this time, the first time Vince quit, they built the whole show around him. They had Stephanie come out there, the big goodbye, the whole bit. And this guy's been erased. Paul Levesque never mentioned his name at the press conference. On the Friday Night Smackdown show, they never mentioned his name. I don't think that anyone's going to mention his name on any shows, maybe ever again, at least not, for the foreseeable future. It is, and probably for all good reasons. I don't see any point in ever mentioning his name, other than it's in like a historical piece, because unfortunately, when it comes to the history of WWE, you can't tell the history of WWE up until the last month or two and do a fair job without mentioning Vince McMahon, because his fingerprints are everywhere and he's the key guy in history. When it comes to Mercedes Moné making her AEW debut, Sean Ross Sapp Fightful reported that AEW founder Tony Khan fueled speculation on Wednesday when it was announced that he'd have an announcement on the February 7th episode of AEW Dynamite. While no one will confirm, it was implied that it was related to the impending appearance of Mercedes Moné in AEW. However, we were not told that her signing would be outright mentioned as a part of the rumored announcement. However, what we have heard from numerous talent is that they've been told within the company and from those close to Mercedes that the working plan in All Elite Wrestling is for her to physically appear for the company in March, likely after the Revolution pay-per-view. We have not been told when she can make an in-ring wrestling debut for the company. Despite hoping to make an announcement sooner, it looks as though AEW had to change plans. As Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio, I don't know if you know this or not, but they were originally going to make the announcement on Saturday, but then they realized that was probably not the best day to make the announcement because with the Vince McMahon stuff, it's like nobody is going to be talking about this. It's better to do the announcement at a time when people will be talking about it rather than to get lost in the sleaziness of Vince McMahon's story that is all over everywhere. With John Laurinaitis also accused in the sex trafficking lawsuit against Vince McMahon, his lawyer, Edward Brennan, responded, writing, "Mr. Laurinaitis denies the allegations in the misguided complaint and will be vigorously defending these charges in court, not the media. Like the plaintiff, Mr. Laurinaitis is a victim in this case, not a predator. The truth will come out." Ringside News added, in response to a follow-up question seeking clarification that he was asserting Vince McMahon as the predator and Laurinaitis like Grant as a victim, Brennan stated, "Read the allegations. Read the federal statute. Power, control, employment, supervisory capacity, dictatorial sexual demands with repercussions if not met. Count how many times in the complaint Vince exerts control over both of them." And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all later.